Welcome everyone to another edition of the PhinManiacs.com podcast live right now. And today we're going to be talking about the training camp recap. It's basically the first 4 days of training camp are now over and done with. 2 of them have been done in pads. So we're going to be discussing what we saw, what we didn't see, what we still hope to see, what we don't expect to see. And of course, we're also going to be talking a little bit about the whole Evan Mathis situation that's going on. We're going to be looking to see if maybe should the Dolphins still be looking into it? Are they looking into it? There's a whole bunch of conflicting reports going on out there, so truthfully, you can't really know for sure. So basically, we're just going to be talking about what we feel about it. So let's just start off right here and now, and I'm going to start off by mentioning that rotations are the theme for this year, and I say that even more so than usual. What the Dolphins are doing this time is that apparently, since they don't have a set veteran like last year when they signed Cortland Finnegan to play cornerback, now they're rotating everything in pretty much every possible way you can think of. The running backs are being rotated in and out. The linebackers are being rotated in and out. The cornerbacks, the safeties, everybody. At this point, there really is no off limits to just who gets to rotate, who gets to play with the ones, the twos, the threes, who's even with the scout team and all that. So I think what's the most significant one is that Chris McCain is being rotated so far out all the time, and he's been with the twos, he's been with the ones, he's been lined up as a defensive end. I hate to make it sound like this, but it kind of feels like they don't know what to do with him again, and that bothers me because I don't want to deal with another Dion Jordan incident. I don't want to deal with a situation where we're going to be putting McCain here, we're going to be putting him there, but in the end of the day, we're not going to have a set place for him, some place where he belongs and he can be on the field all the time. That's the problem with Dion Jordan, is that we keep trying to set him here. He doesn't do well because he doesn't get enough practice, so we'll put him here instead and hope he does better, and he doesn't because he hasn't had much practice there. So the thing about it is that you see this rotation. I don't like the rotations because if you already have a set idea, if you see the potential a guy has, go ahead and let them practice there. They're doing the same thing on the offensive line, even though it's pretty clear to me just after the first 4 days of camp that there is a clear winner at the left guard position, and yet they're still rotating between Jamil Douglas and Dallas Thomas. Why? What's the purpose other than to just experiment and see what happens? As far as I'm concerned, Douglas has already proven that he's the better choice. Dallas Thomas has been knocked on his butt so many times already that it's not even funny. Douglas, on the other hand, is holding his own. That should be enough to give some kind of indication that, oh, look, Jamil Douglas should be the starter to begin with. And you see Chris McCain with his incredible pass rushing skills, and you see that, oh, he's doing really well where he's at. Why don't you keep him in there? No, because you want to put Kelvin Shepherd in there because he's a veteran. No, that's not my thinking at all. Of course, I'm not the coaching staff, and truthfully, no one is the coaching staff except for those coaches. And truth be told, I don't even think I want to try and figure out how they think, because a lot of the times they do stuff, and I'm just scratching my head thinking, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, so I'm just going to stop and let you guys go for it. Go ahead.
Usually, from what I know, rotations like that means uncertainty, and so I'm guessing that you probably see more rotations at positions where they're unsettled at. Obviously, guard's gonna be one of them. I think the cornerback opposite of Brett Grimes is another one you're seeing rotations, and of course, at the linebacker position. I think in their base defense, I don't think it's without question that McCain's probably going to be the starting strong side linebacker, but I don't know in all the packages. I know that in the NFL they're subbing it out of packages all the time, so I'm sure they're trying to get a feel for different circumstances where maybe it's less likely to pass or something. Maybe they feel more comfortable with Cole Messi at strong side linebacker than Chris McCain. I mean, Cole Messi's played it extensively, so he knows the position pretty well, but it makes me nervous. You probably caught on the show last week. I was kind of critical of Kelvin Shepherd. I think he's okay. I think he's an average NFL football player, but it makes me nervous that you're starting the season looking at putting a guy that you pretty much got off the scrap heap last year as your starting inside linebacker all of a sudden. And been a weakness, in my opinion, for Coach Philbin, that he tends to really push towards the veterans over the rookies. And I'm more so with you, Lewis. I think if you see the talent, I mean, you want to get him as many possible reps as possible. Now, I completely understand you need to develop your second and third strings, and so obviously when you have players like Brett Grimes, Cameron Wake, Luis Delmas, you want to limit the amount of reps those guys are getting in camp because they don't need the reps. They already know their positions. You want to keep their bodies fresh, and so you want to get younger guys working with the first team units like Walt Aikens and Michael Thomas, and those sort of things make sense. What doesn't make sense to me is what you touched on, is a guy like Jamil Douglas. Clearly, he's a powerful guy. Clearly, he's a rookie. He needs a lot of work. He should be getting every possible snap in there with the first team rep, because I just don't see how they think that Dallas Thomas is going to change any. I mean, he's probably being a little, people are being a little critical on him in terms of his guard play. I don't think Dallas Thomas is near as bad of a guard as he is tackle, but the reality is he is average at best, and Jamil Douglas probably has the potential to be better than that, and so they should be trying to maximize that. So, but that's, you've been going to training camps for a few years now, Lewis. That's nothing that's changed with Philbin. He tends to work the veterans in ahead of the rookies, even though he has players that have more talent. I think he takes a while for him to get comfortable with rookies. I really don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. McCain was undrafted and it's only his second year, and he didn't get to play much last year, so I'm not too surprised that it's going kind of slow. I think he needs a little bit of time. He still has a lot to learn. And, I mean, sometimes rotations are a good thing. You want to get your best players out there. I mean, like I was seeing Fade today was having a good day, and, you keep rotating players. Sometimes it's not bad. You preserve energy, and I think it's not too. The linebacker situation can be viewed as a bad thing if you don't like Kelvin Shepherd and if you don't think that Koemisi in the middle is good. But I'm kind of excited at the battle in it, and like Chad said, rotations happen all the time, and people come in and out, and it's going to be good that we have people that we don't have Donnell Ellerbe and Philip Wheeler anymore, and now we have young guys that actually have some promise, and bring them in, rotate them. That's fine with me. Let the best man win.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying is that when you already have a best man that has pretty much emerged and proven himself to be the better option, why do you still give the runner-up opportunities?
For like insurance, like
No.
because McCain is still young and Shepard is like he's been there, he's played for multiple teams.
Okay, yeah, okay, I'm gonna cut you off because this is what we do. You can cut me off if you feel like it, and this is just a thing. So, Okay, I understand what you're saying. Yes, the veterans they've proven McCain's still a young guy. Okay, I understand that. That's fine. But so what is that? What's the excuse for the offensive line position? What's the excuse for left guard? Jamil Douglas has already proven to me, to a lot of people, to the beat writers, to pretty much everybody, that he is the better option beyond the shadow of a doubt. And Dallas Thomas needs to go back to being a backup because that's the only thing he's good for. So, again, what goes into the coaching staff's mind that you feel that, okay, let's give Dallas Thomas chances again and again and again and again and again and again? At some point, you have to okay, fine, Douglas wins. At the very least, give him more opportunities to be on the first team than Thomas, because he's probably going to be the one going up against these stars. He's going to be the one going up against Buffalo and New York and all these powerful defensive lines. If you already have someone who's turning out to be the favorite and it's this quick, go ahead and get them all the reps on the first team that you can get, because they're going to need it. Jamil Douglas is doing good, but he's not Evan Mathis. He's not going to be a star. So you might as well give him all the practice you can get your hands on, because you already have this idea that, okay, he's the one who's going to win the job. Why do you keep wasting your time with Dallas Thomas? That's the part that really bugs me.
I think to go with that, Lewis, and every player is in every situation, goes into that thought process. But I do question at times, and I try not to be overly critical of the coaches because they have a lot more information than we have. But I do question at times certain positions, their ability to recognize some of the talent they have. And I like I said, Kelvin Shepherd's a solid veteran player. I'd like having him available as a backup, linebacker, and I can see in certain packages where if you're playing a team that's very run heavy, that is going to be trying to run a lot, he's a big, solid linebacker, and so there's certain packages I would even consider playing him in on. But in my mind, he clearly has a ceiling. That as you guys pointed out, he's played on several teams. He was a free agent at the start of the last season, and he's got a very limited ceiling on what he is not going to be an all-pro inside linebacker. There's no doubt about it. He's probably not even going to be an above-average inside linebacker. And what I always wonder is last year they weren't even going to let Jelani Jenkins be in the starting lineup, and he turned out to be one of their best linebackers. And what I wonder is a guy like Zach Vigil or Jeff Luke, even Jordan Tripp, are those guys to me have much higher ceilings right now. We don't know what their ceilings are, but they seem like they could be much more talented players than Kelvin Shepherd. And I always think when you get into the second and third half of this portion, I shouldn't say half of the season, and you got Kelvin Shepherd in there, and the games are really counting. You got Tom Brady in there, who's going to be attacking his ability to cover the perimeters by doing dump off passes to running backs, and you've got Shady McCoy in Buffalo. Are you really thinking that Kelvin Shepherd's going to be able to run him down when they're running screens and things like that? And in my mind, is he just doesn't have the talent to be in those situations. And I wonder if a guy like Vigil might be able to do that. And I'm with you, Lewis. By putting Shepherd in there right now, you're limiting the reps for those young guys. I completely understand it in different scenarios where you have proven veterans. Like I absolutely would like them to put Fide in there with the first team and just give Cameron Wake a break. There's no reason to be working Cameron Wake that hard, and Fide has a big ceiling. Where it does get frustrating is, in years past, Philip Wheeler is a good example. Philip Wheeler had an obvious ceiling on him that you knew he wasn't going to be that good. He wasn't good in pass coverage. He had his limits, but yet they continue to put him in and put him in and put him in. And you got to think, is that really beneficial for the team long term versus short term, trying to get more reps out of the guys who have higher ceilings? So to me, it depends on the player, but I don't know why, but Philbin's he is a stubborn guy, and it's really hard to break through as a rookie on his teams. But I think he limits the development of players at times with that methodology, I guess.
Yeah, and I love Chris McCain, and I love the young guys, and I think it's really cool that the Dolphins brought in linebackers in the Luke Kuechly mold, like Zach Thomas mold, guys like that. But honestly, each game is so important, and it's just they're very prone to mistakes because they have such little experience. And I'm sure where Philbin is coming from by playing Shepherd so much is at least he has playing time. He's been on the field, and you bring these players along slowly. You could lose. I mean, a middle linebacker is such an important spot on the defense. Think about it. You could lose a game real quick from that position. They have to. They have to see so much, and they do so much. They're the quarterback for the defense, they say, right? And that's just really risky if you want to put a young guy in there. I get where he's coming from, and I think that as the year goes on, the push will come from the rookies and the young guys. But it's a huge gamble to bring out someone with little experience. And I know Chris McCain, he flashed absolutely. I love him. I think he's great, but I don't think I don't think they think that he's ready to get an entire load. That's a whole lot to put on a young guy's shoulders. It really is.
Okay, but and again, yes, technically you're right, and I see where you're coming from. But Chad, you brought up the guys like Jordan Tripp, and you brought up the guys like Terrence Fide, and with that, I will say you are right. They do have a high ceiling, but the difference is I'm not going to complain that they're not on the first team and all that because they haven't shown any potential yet to be better than Kelvin Shepherd is right now. They haven't shown it to me in camp yet that they are better. They haven't proven that they've ascended beyond what Shepherd can do. That's not necessarily the case with McCain, and that's not the case with Jamil Douglas and that's not the case over Dallas Thomas with Jamil Douglas. Thomas has not shown that he can be better than Douglas, not once. And McCain has proven that he has an incredible ability to pass rush, which, by the way, is the only thing that Philip Wheeler could do well last year. And if the Dolphins were willing to stick with Wheeler all that time last season, I can't understand why you wouldn't allow McCain, who is not only a better pass rusher, but he also has the potential to be a better cover just because of his measurables. He's taller than Wheeler, he's longer than Wheeler, he's faster than Wheeler, I would think. So you were willing to go with Wheeler last year, but you won't give McCain the opportunity to prove that he's a much better version than him. You continue to go with Koamisi, who I suppose if you want to go along the lines of, well, he was a pass rusher in college, okay, fine, I guess you can go there. But Shepard is okay. He's nothing special. McCain has the ability to be special, and I think Koamisi is a better middle linebacker than Kelvin Shepard is. So with that kind of mentality, I would think that McCain would be a better option just to let him get that practice in. If all else fails, if Shepard really is the veteran that he is, how much practice does he need? And that's just me being emotional about it. I understand why he needs the snaps, but I would say that McCain needs the snaps more than Shepard does at middle linebacker. And he's shown that he has the ability to be better. Tripp and Fede on their respective positions have not proven that they can be better than anyone else. Not yet, anyway. They can, I'm sure, but they haven't gotten to that point. McCain's almost there, but they're not letting him try.
Yeah, it's hard for me to evaluate McCain right now. Because I don't know how well he's handling all their different packages. I think he absolutely is exceptional at tracking the ball, and I think they'll be trying to put him in many situations as possible where he is attacking the ball. That means, whether it's the ball carrier or the quarterback, he's trying to run him down and tackle him. He's very talented. I don't know if that means he's not quite sure. There's a lot of things that come with the scheme you're running. For example, if a team goes into motion and the tight end flips sides, does Chris McCain understand how that changes the containment, how that changes his pass coverage zone responsibilities, and things like that? So that's something I try not to get too critical of the coaches, because we simply don't know as spectators, did Chris McCain understand his job when they just did a walkthrough on the practice, or was he in the wrong spot? And so they want to make sure they have a veteran in there that knows his responsibilities. But when they know they can just tell Chris McCain to go after the quarterback, then they're going to want him in there. So I can understand why they do that. What I don't like is I don't like settling for players that have kind of met their potential, and I just feel like that's a good way to end up where Miami's been for the last few decades, is you end up as an average football team because you're settling for average players. And in my mind, Kelvin Shepard is an average player. He's not going to be a guy that goes in and takes over a football game. And I'm with you, Lewis, where Chris McCain can do that. He might break through, get a huge sack in a game. He might make a huge stop out on the perimeter, and I just don't see Kelvin Shepard making those plays when you play a team that's a top 10 team in the league. When you're getting into the playoff runs, you need guys that can have that talent level. And so I don't like seeing early on in training camp holding back guys that probably have higher ceilings, because you need that impact play talent as you get out later into the years. Now, I don't know what Zach Vigil's looking like. I don't know what Jordan Tripp's looking like, in terms of where they fit. How will they know the schemes? They just seem like they're faster players and have a higher potential to be able to develop, and they could become starter that's solid. We just don't know. And I always wonder if it's like another Jelani Jenkins, where Donnell Ellerbe and Philip Wheeler were keeping him on the bench, where he clearly was a faster player and made their defense better. And so I don't know what the happy medium is of consistency versus talent. But I mean, that's just my personal preference. I would rather leave a little consistency away right now in training camp and preseason and try to develop my talented players as much as I possibly can.
And I say ease them in, because no one ease these rookies in. No one gets, nothing is handed to them. They have to fight and earn everything that they're going to get. And there are players who may not be as good as they are, but you know what? They sit in front of them at the moment. And if Chris McCain started every game next year, I bet that he would make a lot of mistakes, because he is young. And is that the sacrifice you make for starting young players? I guess it is, but So I think they should be eased in.
So essentially, what you're saying is you'd rather go with the guy who's not going to be anything special and might make fewer mistakes, because I don't think Shepard's that great anyway, over a guy who could make a few spectacular plays and make a few more mistakes.
Or a big mistake, because they can make big plays and they can also make big mistakes. Like, I mean, Chris McCain could blow an assignment and that could turn the whole game around, you know? So there's a little bit of peace of mind when you play a safe player. Like, and I'm not saying to, sit the kid and never play him until Shepard gets hurt. I think that slowly you begin to give him more snaps every game, because the snap count that McCain's going to get week 1 isn't going to be as much as it is week 10, right? Ease it in slowly, because they are young. We can't. I mean, second year, you're still learning so much.
But sometimes you have to throw these guys in the fire. It was Jelani Jenkins in second year when Ellerby went down, and he turned out to be a star.
Yeah.
How do we know that's not the case again?
I'm just nervous about what happens in the process of us finding out.
Sometimes you got to take that chance, man. I mean, if Ellerby had stayed healthy, we'd have never known that Jenkins could do what he does.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I guess I have to, maybe I don't like taking risks, but I just think it needs to happen slowly. And I'd be nervous if McCain took a whole lot of snaps next year, because, there's a lot of bad things that could happen, especially at the linebacker position.
You're not a gambler.
Not really. I mean, like running back, and like there's places for that where you can throw a kid in and you can learn on the fly, but I just think linebacker is a very crucial position.
Yeah, I think they're working McCain into, and like I said, I don't think it's at all talent. I think clearly the most talented group of linebackers would be Jenkins and Misi and McCain, I would think. I can't imagine it would be anybody else, but I'm sure it all depends how well Chris McCain's picking the schemes up and where that is. I think we talked a lot about Kelvin Shepard, but they do that around where they're rotating around, and I think most teams do that at this point in the season. But I do believe in chemistry and making sure units, whether it's the offensive line or the linebacker core. And I hope they start to get away from doing that when they start to get into, like, say, the second preseason game, because you need to start developing chemistry within your unit, and people need to start being, really focusing in on their jobs and not being moved around. And I'm hoping that Chris McCain will be taken, at least 50 to 60% of the snaps as the strong side linebacker, just because I think he'll make enough plays that it'll be worthwhile. But if he's making a lot of mental mistakes, then obviously you can't do that. And those will show up on film. It won't be hard to tell. I was pointing out last year, they struggled a lot with breakdowns and containment last year, and that is guys not understanding what their roles in the scheme is. They just forget about that and they go to instinct. They just start chasing the football, and that's when reverses are going around the other direction against the Jets and the Jaguars, because people are not staying within their schemes. And so that Chris McCain seems like a player that would be prone to get sucked in on a screen or over pursue the quarterback on a reverse or something like that, because he's so aggressive at chasing the football. And so I understand the concept of, well, it might be a little bit safer to play Cole Misi, Kelvin Shepard in there because they're veterans. They're not going to get fooled as easily. They know their responsibilities. So I'm not a proponent to say don't do it. I think there's certain players that I understand that with, but I would like to see the younger players getting in there more. But it's such an individualized basis. I mean, I could name off certain players. Like, I don't think I'm agreeing with Lewis. I don't think Dallas Thomas should even be in the consideration right now in the first team rotation, because he's had enough playing time, enough film, enough opportunity to know he's never going to be better than average, in my opinion. He's pretty well hit his ceiling. I don't think Dallas Thomas is going to suddenly escalate into a Pro Bowl guard, whereas Jamil Douglas, I think, could. He's probably not that far apart right now on where he's at than Dallas Thomas. And so my thinking with him is you need to get him as many reps as possible. Terrence Fede, I think he will very likely take over Derek Shelby's role next year. And so getting him extra reps in there to rest the veterans makes a lot of sense as well. But where you have positions that aren't settled, I mean, the rotations, you have to do them. And corners are a really good example where Jamar Taylor and Bryce McCain, and they're moving those guys around because it's close. I mean, you don't really know who the better combination is, who the better player is, and so they need a rotation in there to get a good evaluation. So I understand that aspect of it too. I just personally I don't like to see players that don't have a high ceiling, that are players that are not going to allow you to succeed in the postseason, getting a lot of work in there right now, because to me you're already settling for a team that will not be able to compete with the elite teams in the league. That's why I don't like it.
I want to go back to McCain real quick. A good coach, though, will find a way to get his best players on the field, and I think it's great that they are, in camp putting them at defensive end and linebacker, and they're switching them around because no matter what, I think McCain's going to be out there. I think he's way too talented. Whether they give him the keys to the car and he can play linebacker as a starter, or he gets a ton of snaps in between the two, it's going to be great. It's great that they have him out there getting the snaps at both positions, and even just for depth, because injuries happen every single year, and to have a guy like that can play both, it's great.
It is. It's a frustration for me that I 100% agree with what you said. It's just been such a theme in the league that coaches are so caught up in their system, I put in quotes, that they want players that fit their system. And I see more and more like what I feel like are people taking less talented players because they feel like they're a system fit, versus coaches that look at, here's what I have as a team, here's what the talents of my player is, let me create situations and schemes that maximize my players' talents. You don't see it work that way much anymore. It's so much now about making the players fit the scheme versus maximizing the players' talents. So I really wish that Philbin maybe would get a little more flexible in doing that with a player like Chris McCain is a good example where, man, if you could move him around and just having him attacking the quarterback all the time, he can, create havoc. But if you're trying to force him to cover a zone in your scheme all the time, he's probably not going to be better than half the linebackers on the team at covering a zone in pass coverage. So it's all about how they're utilized. You're so right there.
There's actually discussion going on in the chat right now, and it's from Professor Lou, basically saying that McCain isn't being developed as a full-time linebacker. He's the guy they're going to move around like they wanted to do with Jordan. And I believe this is the case because they are giving Chris McCain significant amount of snaps at defensive end as well. But even though he's right, I hate that he's right. Because again, we're doing the same mistake all over again, except this time it's with Chris McCain. You're taking a kid who he may not have the best mental capacity for the game, but he has so much talent that if he could just master one position, he could be a star in the league. I wish they would stop trying to get this idea of let's make this utility guy who can play everywhere all at once and do everything. And that's exactly the same kind of thing they try to do with Dallas Thomas. Let's make him be able to play everywhere, so no matter where we need him, he can be decent. I don't want decent. I want somebody who's really good at one spot over one guy who's great, who's okay at a lot of spots. That would mean like you're taking Ndamukong Suh, who's the ultimate defensive tackle, and making him okay by making him play linebacker and defensive end and maybe even play a little safety. It's like, no, don't. He's great at one thing. Make him do that one thing.
Oh, I think that, I understand that they're doing that, and I think the reality of it is that probably behind Cameron Wake and maybe Olivier Vernon, Chris McCain probably is the best pure pass rusher on the team. But I don't think for a second that they're going to be playing him at defensive end in an early down situation. He just simply is not big enough. He's not near as big and strong as Deion Jordan is to put his hand in the dirt and actually play defensive end. However, if you're in a passing situation, third and long, absolutely, Chris McCain is a great guy to be sending in purely after the passer. You don't want him out there in coverage. You're far better off to, especially if it's 3rd and 10 or longer, you want somebody like Walt Aikens on the field covering people, not Chris McCain. And so they're just simply removing him from a linebacker role altogether in those situations and saying, well, he's still one of our best pass rushers. We want him in the game simply going after the passer. And no matter whether he handles the strong side linebacker position or not, Chris McCain will be in there on their third and long packages rushing the quarterback simply because he's one of the best on the team at that specific role. But I think the real question is, can he be a first down and 10, second down and 8 strong side linebacker, and that's where he probably has a long ways to go yet, and the debate is whether or not they're getting him enough reps to realistically be able to do that job as well.
But just give him one position or one role. Stop trying to turn them into utility players, because when you try to give them too much to handle at once, they tend to not be as high a ceiling as you want them to be.
Yeah, Lewis, I agree with you, man.
I agree too. I mean, there's players. Dallas Thomas is a great example of. That's again going back to I question what the coaches are looking at from a talent standpoint, because I was vocal last year saying, why in the world is Dallas Thomas ever playing tackle? I never have seen him play one good game at tackle. He's gotten schooled since he was a rookie. People just blow by him, and he just is not able to play the position. And last year it was a mystery to me that it was not Jason Fox or even Billy Turner, who I thought looked much better at limited playing tackle than Dallas Thomas. And so, part of that probably does stem from they were giving Dallas Thomas the reps all the way back to camp to be a backup tackle because they want to have a utility lineman so they can save roster positions. But you know what? You need a guy like Fox to go in there that is a legitimate tackle, and you can't skim by putting Dallas Thomas out there at tackle. And it's a waste of time to have a guy like that taking reps in practice. He simply does not have the talent level to do it. So it becomes just, in my mind, it questions whether the coaches are really able to evaluate the talent on the roster at times when they do those things.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we saw it last year with, hey, let's take this one of the best centers in the league and let's play him at guard, and we'll just keep one of the worst centers in the league at guard. And like Coyle, he really loves with the interchangeable safeties. Deion Jordan taking snaps at tight end, and on paper that looks really cool and it's exciting and it's good because someone gets hurt, this guy can play multiple positions. But we've seen it fail multiple times. And Lewis, you're right. Stick to your position, learn it up and down until you have mastered it, and then just do your job. The experiment failed. It's over.
And that's the problem. That's the biggest issue I have with Dallas Thomas, is that if you're everywhere, then truthfully you're nowhere. You don't have a hole. You don't have a home. There's nowhere that you can play that you're going to succeed. They treated Koamisi like that a lot too. It's like you try to find him a home, he finally does well, and then you're moving him over to somewhere else. So now Koamisi can play everywhere. Except, is he great at anything? No, but you know what? I think we've reached his highest level of potential. Koamisi is one example where I think we got lucky, where he can play everywhere and still do good enough.
Yeah.
But for someone like Dallas Thomas, no. Every time he's been given a chance to play, he's fallen on his face. So I'm done giving him chances. I'm done making excuses for him. I've never given excuses for him. He's been bad ever since he showed up. He's never not been bad. And even when he was at guard last year, it still wasn't pretty. I'll never forget that one preseason game where Gerald McCoy literally picked him up and threw him onto the ground.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, and that's supposed to be where you're good. It's like, if that's where you're good, then God forbid you're ever somewhere that you're bad.
Yeah, I remember that awful preseason game in Tampa Bay for Dallas Thomas. It was so embarrassing. And I believe that it was in Miami with the dirt on the field, and I think everyone was getting all dirty. I don't know. From day one I didn't like Dallas Thomas, and it is surprising that they're still giving him a chance. But hey, man, let's let Philbin be Philbin, I guess.
Let Philbin be Philbin. We don't know any better than the coaches. They're the ones who are with the players all the time. Yeah. They're the ones who know what they do. Yes, I understand that. I get it. I'm not in that organization. I don't know what they're doing in their off time. I don't know all that stuff. I can only judge based on what I see. And what I see is that there are a lot of talented players showing their talent and not getting the chance to utilize it. And that's the part that bugs me. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and move on to a little different of a topic. We're still going to be talking about the offensive line somewhat, but we're going to be talking about Billy Turner. Now, here's the thing. Turner has been so far this training camp. He has struggled at times. He's shown what he can do at times. But from what I've seen, he hasn't been the dominant force that I expected him to be. And truthfully, it doesn't bother me that much. I shouldn't expect him to be right away. That was probably my mistake, that I tried to make it seem like he was going to be a star right off the bat, because he's just that good of a mauler.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I have seen it at times tells me that he does have that capability. He just needs more time to let it develop. There were times when he left Cameron Wake at a standstill, and that's not easy to do. Like, he pretty much just got in Wake's way and pretty much stopped him right where he was. That was it. He wasn't going anywhere. And then there was one play where he let A.J. Francis almost sneak by him, and that didn't look so much like a power move. That was more along the lines of hand technique and footwork, which, of course, has been Billy Turner's weakness all along. So if Turner can continue to improve as training camp goes on, I think right guard will be okay. It's not going to be awesome, because, of course, it's not going to be awesome, but it's going to be good enough. And again, Jamil Douglas at left guard, because he will eventually win that job. It's not going to. They're wasting their time putting Dallas Thomas on the first team. It will eventually be Douglas. So, with that in mind, what do you guys think of Billy Turner so far, based on just what you've heard?
You want me to go?
Go for it.
Billy Turner, I mean, you got to keep in mind he's from a small school, and so he hasn't played that many reps against high-level competition. And you're in the first 2 days of contact, and he's spending a lot of time going against Cameron Wake and Ndamukong Suh. And so I completely expect him, pardon my language, but I completely expect him to get his ass kicked, because, I mean, Ndamukong Suh is a monster, and Cameron Wake's a monster, and these are veteran Pro Bowl players going up against a guy who's pretty much played primarily against small school competition and played very little last year. He was hurt majority of the year, and so he's going to get beat around for a while. I guess in terms of Billy Turner, on how I feel about him as a starting guard right now, it's going to take me watching him on film for a couple preseason games or so to see how he does throughout the course of the game, and how he holds his own, how many mistakes he makes, and those sorts of things. I think watching him, I like how quick he comes off the ball. I like how he drives people. I think he has the talent level. I think he's a far superior lineman as an athlete compared to somebody like Dallas Thomas, and so he just needs a lot of reps. And the guys I go back to are Keith Sims and Richmond Webb. When they brought those guys into Miami as rookies, those guys pretty much played all preseason games long. I mean, from the beginning of camp through all the preseason, they were the starting left tackle and left guard, and they played all 4 quarters. They played against the starters all the way down to the 4th string, and they just have to get the reps in. And that's exactly what my feeling is right now with Jamil Douglas and Billy Turner. If you want to take an easier way out and go get Mathis, that'd be great. I think right now, from a cap standpoint, he's probably not realistic, but he actually would be a better player in there right now to block in camp right now, to block Ndamukong Suh, because he's been playing at a Pro Bowl level for years in the NFL. He'll look a lot better. But otherwise, I would say, you're going to get that with young guards. Jamil Douglas is a rookie, and Billy Turner has limited snaps, but I both feel like they're powerful men that have the ability to develop into very good NFL guards. And so I would not even be putting any time into putting Dallas Thomas in there right now, because, again, my point is, what is your goal? Do you want to get into the playoffs and compete? Do you really think you can get into the playoffs and compete at that level with Dallas Thomas in there at guard? He's going to get blown up, by the good defensive tackles. Whereas I feel like Jamil Douglas and Billy Turner, if you just let them in there, they're going to miss blocks at time to time early on in the season. But hopefully, by the time you get into the second half, into the back end of the season, they will have gotten away from being rookies and be solid guards at that point, so you can compete. So I wouldn't be too overcritical on Billy Turner. Like I said, you just got to consider who he's going against and his limited experience. And so my question is he just getting shoved on his butt and just getting blown out of there, or is it he's not quite getting his assignments down yet? He's not quite figured out, what angles to take on his blocks and stuff. So it really comes down to that in my mind.
Chad, I'm with you with Billy Turner, and I'm optimistic with him. But is there a chance that maybe we've enamored him? Like, because the Dolphins drafted Billy Turner after the Bullygate, and we needed O-line big time. And they took Billy Turner. We got this guard, a giant mauler. Needed to work on his footwork. Okay, we got coaches for that. Now, maybe I haven't seen enough of him last year, but I'm a little bit nervous that we have this image of Billy Turner in our heads that isn't real, that we've kind of manufactured. This is our next big guy. It's about time we get this O-line turned around. Until I start seeing some real results, I'm going to be just a little bit skeptical. But I am with you there, and I want to see his development. And I don't know if you've seen like interviews with him and stuff. He seems like a really awesome guy. But yeah, I'm just a little bit, cautious about it.
You should be because going into the season with two inexperienced guards really exposes you up the middle with in particular against the level of competition in the AFC East. I know Sheldon Richardson just got in trouble, but the Jets still are very formidable up front, as is Buffalo, and for that matter, as is the Patriots. They all have very strong interior defensive tackles. So I'm very concerned they're just going to destroy the pocket, and when you're getting your pocket consistently disrupted, it's hard to put any kind of scheme in there that consistently works. And so that's a huge concern. But the reality for the Dolphins is, what other options do they have right now? Do you really think that we can put in Linkenbach and Dallas Thomas ahead of Turner and Douglas and field a competitive team throughout the year? I just don't see it. And so the best option, without a doubt, if you put all the other intangibles, would be getting Mathis as soon as possible and putting him in there. That's a Pro Bowl level guard that would make a huge difference. He's clearly better at this juncture of his career than Turner or Douglas, but that's from a salary cap standpoint. I don't know if it's realistically possible. And so, knowing here's what we have, I think the best we can do is get Turner and Douglas as many reps as possible and try to get them beat up as much as possible by Ndamukong and Suh in practice, knowing that hopefully by the time we get into the games that count, that we'll have improved, that much more. But you're right on Turner. I'm high on him, but again, you just got to step back and say he's a small school guy who hasn't played against much competition, and he was hurt most of the year. So he's basically an unknown commodity with the second best person to throw in there with him, a rookie. That's our reality right now on the interior. That's the best we can do. And so I have to hope that there's some serious discussions going on with Mathis, because my preference at any position is to have rookies working with very good, veterans, like what we've done in the secondary, having a player like Jamar Taylor who got to work with Cortland Finnegan and Brent Grimes for a year. I feel like he's a much better player than if we were having to start him right now as a rookie. And I would much rather have Terrence Fede working with Cameron Wake and Derek Shelby for a year or two before we really get in a scenario where we have to rely on them. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury at guard, and we'd have to really pay a lot of money and put ourselves in a poor salary cap position for the next couple of years if we go get Mathis. So it's our best hope right now is the offensive line coach has got to step up, and he's got to get those young guys ready. That's where we're at.
Well, one advantage that we have is that they get to, practice against some nasty guys every day. So that makes me a little bit more at ease that these guys are practicing against Ndamukong Suh and Cameron Wake and Olivier Vernon, because that's not an easy task. And you know what? If they can stay upright against those guys, pretty sure they'll do a good job with the rest of the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a fair weather fan because obviously I'm a Dolphins fan, but this is probably the best defensive line we've had in a while, but we may have ever had. They're very good, and so
and we've had good ones. even
Oh
recently.
yeah, and I'm not trying to slight like Jason Taylor's or some of the other good defensive lines we've had, but I'm
Tim
just saying,
Bowens.
yeah, Tim Bones is a good great D tackle, but I mean Ndamukong and Suh and Cameron Wake. The reality is those guys are both near they're top five at their positions in the league. They're playing together side by side right now, running. I mean, I'm just trying to picture in there and you having Ndamukong and Suh and Cameron Wake do stunts on you, right now, and you're trying to learn your schemes, and if you're off balance at all, I mean, how powerful Ndamukong and Suh is, I mean, you're beat. That's the reality. So.
And this is actually a pretty good segue right now because the chat right now is switched on to talking about Brandon Albert and why he's going to be the key to getting all the offensive line back and not necessarily getting Evan Mathis. And I have to concur with those guys because, I mean, you have to remember that, like you said, Efren, you got to look at the competition that they're going up against. It's like they're going up against who I didn't pick them to be the best because I actually picked Buffalo in the AFC East roundtable I'm doing. But the Dolphins have one of the best defensive lines in all of football with Cam Wake, Olivier Vernon, and Ndamukong Suh right there. So they are not only facing possibly the highest level of competition they can, they're doing so without their top linemen. They're doing so without the anchor that makes everything else function. And you could make the argument that that's Pouncey, but without Brandon Albert, that line is a lot weaker than it's supposed to be. So, and I said it on during day 4. Albert was in pads. He had no brace on. He was walking around fairly well. He's not great, but fairly well. And he actually managed to participate in some light individual drills. He didn't hit anybody, but the fact that he was doing anything is a miracle in and of itself. So let me ask you guys this. How much of an impact will Albert make the moment he gets back? Just speculate on that. How much better will it be with Albert there as opposed to not? Because he's on the left side of the line and that's it. Does it make that big of a deal for everybody else or just the guy he's next to?
That's a tough question. Obviously, the more inexperienced players you put together, the more mistakes are going to happen. I'm a kind of a big Jason Fox fan personally. I think that he's a solid player. I think he's had a career where he's had a lot of injuries, and so
I'm going to cut you off there, Chad.
Go.
Fox has been terrible, to say the least, ever since camp opened up.
Well, I haven't seen him individually, so I mean I got to go with your word on that one that he's not looking good. But he's our best option right now, behind Brandon Alberts. I mean you've seen him, moving around, but I'm extremely questioning right now. Even if Brandon Alberts makes it back, how long it is before he's really going to be back? You know what I mean? Like him in the lineup is one thing, but is he going to be at his Pro Bowl left tackle level? And I don't know how long that's going to take. Do you know what I mean?
Hopefully he'll be ready for week 1, but if it does get to the point where he won't be, then, I mean, who are we worried about getting to our quarterback when it comes to Washington? Who are we worried about? Oh, really?
Well, Kerrigan and, Gillette. And the Washington D-line is actually pretty good. There's some good guys on there.
So but it's not Buffalo.
It is not Buffalo, who we faced twice, and the Jets, who we faced twice. No, you're right, and it's not going to be as bad. But don't sleep on that Washington D-line because they are going to play Gillette, and Gillette is a mean guy, and Kerrigan just got paid. And, I don't know, don't sleep on him.
Okay, and what about Jacksonville? They don't have their Dante Fowler anymore.
No, but last year we played Jacksonville, and that was a nasty game. We won on defense against Jacksonville last year, if you remember.
Yeah, but for some reason the offense just decided not to show up that day. Like not even just the O-line, like the whole defense just decided, well, we're gonna give up.
Yeah, Delmas and
Jones showed up. But I also heard too that Chris Clemens, the defensive guy that came over from Seattle, I think he's having trouble too. I know he didn't show up or something, and so I don't know that necessarily means he won't be playing. But Jacksonville's definitely defensively, they have very talented linebackers, and I know they have some. Even Jarek Odrick's going to be playing in there. He's not bad, and they have some, what's his name, Derek Marks or something like that. They have a very good D tackle as well. So it's neither one of the. It's the NFL. I mean, if
Yeah.
you think you're going to be going up against subpar defensive lines in any week, that's not the case. So I mean, what you're seeing is, as you break it down, the tackles and guards, there's a lot of question marks on Miami's offensive line. I mean, that's literally the case, and there has to be several things. I mean, 3 out of the 5 players you're hoping fall into place. I mean, I feel pretty solid that Juwan James is at least going to be solid at right tackle. I don't know if he's going to be a dominating Pro Bowl right tackle, but you know that he's solid, and obviously Pouncey's solid at center. But once you leave that, you don't know when Brandon Albert's going to be back, and as I was pointing out, even if he's back in the lineup, is he going to be dominating left tackle right away? They're going to take him a while, and we have a lot of question marks at guard, and so if one of those fail or 2 of those fail, it's a very realistic scenario to say our week 1 line is going to be Jason Fox, Dallas Thomas, that side by side. I mean, that in itself is like, wow. I don't know who the Redskins are going to be manning up on those guys, but it's going to be a matchup that would probably favor the Redskins.
Yeah.
So it's scary right now.
And the other thing is that, again, the competition level. Washington is not that big of a deal if you compare them to Buffalo and New York. And Jacksonville without Dante Fowler is not that big of a deal if you compare them to Buffalo and New York. Those are the only 2 teams that the defensive line really scares me right now. And this is just the immediate. This is before Albert comes back. And truth be told, even week 4 against the Jets, without Sheldon Richardson, they lost a big piece of that defensive line. And
Albert might be, who knows? He might be fine by that one.
He might be fine by then. And for the Jets, I mean, oh my God, like, did we talk about Sheldon Richardson on the last few days?
No, we
I don't
didn't.
remember. What? Just why? It's like don't get me wrong. As a Dolphins fan, I am thrilled that they've been severely weakened just now. But as a human being, I just have to think about this. What could have possibly went through his head that he thought that he could get away with driving 143 miles an hour with a loaded gun in the car, everybody smelling like weed, and a 12-year-old in the back seat?
That's the worst part, is the 12-year-old kid.
You broke every law in the book all at once. It's not even like you broke a bunch of laws one by one. You broke them all at once. Just what goes through your brain that you think that this is a good idea? Is this considered fun to you? Is breaking the law fun now? It's like, let's test the police and see how far I can go before they get on me?
I would have to say there wasn't a lot going through his mind.
There wasn't going through.
It's been nice, though, because, this happens every offseason in the NFL, and it comes with talent versus character, and that was one of the big philosophy changes that Dennis Hickey brought in with Philbin, was that, look, we are going to take team captains, we're taking high character players, and if you sheer talent, how much can they bench press, how hard are they to block? Sheldon Richardson and Ndamukong Suh are both very good defensive tackles, but if you go with the character side of it, who do you feel better rooting for right now, on your team? Would you feel good about rooting for Sheldon Richardson right now as a fan, knowing that he did that kind of stuff? And so that's kind of, hasn't been, when was the last time, I haven't heard anything this offseason in terms of the Dolphins, in terms of trouble. I mean, you could say Deion Jordan, but I don't think, he was out causing trouble. I mean, he obviously had some drug issues going on, but Miami's been quiet, and that's what you want. I don't want my offensive line coach getting, suspended because he punched a minor on the beach. I don't want my star defensive tackle getting caught going 140 miles an hour with a loaded gun and a 12-year-old. And that's the kind of stuff that helps to derail seasons. And even in New England, here they are doing all this legal battle with the league, and I just love it. I'm like, absolutely, Patriots, you need to take on the NFL, because that's a battle they're not going to win in the end. You can't beat the league. And so all those teams have all those issues going on outside of camp, and what Miami's worried about are who's our guards going to be. They're focused, and that's what you want going into the season, is not all these guys that cause problems. And so I'm a big advocate of that it's not always worth it to get that really talented player but you always have that risk of when is this going to happen? When is he going to have this issue that affects the team?
And that's another thing. It's like, thank goodness that we have not had a player other than Deion Jordan, who really wasn't that effective anyway, that's really gotten in trouble this offseason. As far as I'm concerned, the Dolphins have had the luckiest offseason all year long. It's like, never mind the free agents, never mind the new contracts and all that stuff. They have managed to stay away from trouble. The whole stronger together motto really seems to have happened this time. And the only one not getting the memo is Deion Jordan. Because he can't stay off the weed.
Well, I think he's got issues. I mean, Deion Jordan does, but I hope he gets help. But I haven't really touched on this because I don't want to get tomatoes thrown at me. But there's this real possibility with where Miami is at with the cap that you could roll the dice. And so I would throw this out there and say, how would you feel about saying Deion Jordan, in my opinion, was not playing poorly at defensive end when he was in there. He looked like he had good range. He didn't look like he was making a ton of mistakes. The reality is he just isn't better than Olivier Vernon or Cameron Wake, which is understandable. But if you have the option of Deion Jordan coming back next year and starting in place of Olivier Vernon and going into this season knowing we're not going to be able to re-sign Olivier Vernon to a big contract, would you entertain Deion Jordan be the starting defensive end next year if it meant you could get Mathis right now? And that's a real question.
He better be an angel. He better come at us like with on his knees praying, because he can't mess up again, right? And
he'd be suspended for ever. I think he's done if he gets another drug offense. But
exactly,
it's risky. But my personal opinion is, taking away the trouble is he would be able to probably hold that position down pretty effectively and do that. But that's one of those things where, again, you're weighing character against talent. So that's one of those, when you roll the dice, you get burned. So I don't know. That's a tough call, though, because it'd be so nice to get Mathis right now, because it feels like our team is so close. It feels like we're very close to having a complete team on paper, and you throw Mathis in there, and suddenly all those variables, the offensive line, get that much better because you can slot this in there. Now you've got Billy Turner competing with Douglas at guard, and if there's an injury, you've got Billy Turner and Douglas both to put in there. You're not suddenly in this scenario. But I don't want to help Drew Rosenhaus out, because I know there's a lot of negotiating going on for Mathis right now.
And I don't even know if I believe that much, because how do we know this isn't a smoke screen? I'm tired of breathing in smoke, man. I hear one report that says from Armando that they haven't even discussed Evan Mathis. And then you see Omar saying that, he overheard Tannenbaum and Rosenhaus talking about Mathis. Like, okay, so which is it? It's like one of you was wrong.
Yeah. And another thing, I mean, Deion Jordan was a number 3 overall pick, right? Is that what we traded up for?
Yes.
So the cap hit on his last year, it's actually probably still kind of high, right? Like, I don't think we
right now that's a specialist question, because I have two questions. One is I know he doesn't count. Everything that Deion Jordan was getting paid for this season does not count against the cap. That I do know, when you're suspended for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So they get that off the books, what they were going to have to pay him, which that's kind of where I was going. That's kind of nice, because they didn't really need Deion Jordan this year with Olivier Vernon, but they could use him a lot more next year. So great, let's have his money go to the cap. What I don't know, and that might come down to his contract, is if he's suspended for a year, I don't know. I think he still owes the team a season. Then that's exactly what happened with Ricky Williams. They had paid Ricky Williams out the bonus, and when he decided to come back to football, it was like, here's your choice. We can sue you right now for the bonus you owe us because you did not participate for the season, or we're not going to do that, but you have to, basically play under the contract for the year. And so I believe the way the Deion Jordan thing would play out is he has 2 more years, it's a full year yet added to his contract yet for what he's already been paid in the bonus. So I don't think his final year bonus will hit next season. I think it would roll over to the following year, but I don't know that for a fact. I just think that's how it would work.
Well, the only way I would consider it is if, Fade takes a big step this year, because then we have, someone who can play the D end in case Jordan does slip again.
Well, I think
Or maybe Chris
Fede almost
McCain.
certainly will take over Derek Shelby's role next year. Derek Shelby is going to be a free agent, and I just don't think Miami is going to be able to afford to keep Shelby. Derek Shelby is good enough to start on probably at least 5 to 10 teams in the NFL right now as their starting DN, and
Yeah.
so he'll probably get paid to do that exact role next year. But I think Fede, he's very similar in size. He can play inside and outside, and I think he'll take over that role where if they want a heavier D line, Fede will come in for Cameron Wake or on the other side. But it'll be interesting to watch him progress this year because I actually think Fede is more explosive than Derek Shelby in terms of just pure pass rushing. So he may very well take another step forward and be a guy that you're like, hey, I feel pretty good about Fede at the DN. And you can maybe roll the dice a little bit and say, well, maybe if Deion Jordan gets his act together after a year off, that Fede, Jordan, and Cameron Wake will be solid enough. They can just bring in a young guy and go forward.
And let's switch over to another position. We've been talking about the trenches all this time, so let's.
Thank God. Okay, yes, please.
With we need to do some ball
Amen,
watching before we lose our minds. So another battle that's going on is the cornerback battle, and you brought it up in the chat, Efren. Cornerback's position, you said you have an issue with the height problem.
Yeah.
Well, we have another issue going on. This is another issue with all the rotations and stuff. Everybody's rotating.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Jamar Taylor and Bryce McCain, who McCain was brought in to be the nickel corner, and Taylor was supposed to be on the boundary. Now, this is the problem I have with that, is that Taylor and McCain are literally switching positions periodically on the first team. So it's actually Taylor in the slot and McCain on the boundary. So both of those guys are playing out of the positions they're used to. And I guess the logic is that McCain as a boundary is better than Taylor is, and Taylor's not as bad. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah.
Because I'd rather again, this is the same thing I'm always saying. If you have this kid projected as something, then let him practice there.
Yeah.
Bryce McCain can step in and do stuff if necessary. Why do you waste the time? It's the same thing with Dallas Thomas. Why are you wasting time? He can't do it.
Well, with Jamar Taylor, I'm a little nervous because it seems like he hasn't taken that next step.
Well, you should be nervous
because
he hasn't been spectacular, but he hasn't been terrible either.
But what I'm more nervous about is Bryce McCain on the outside and Brett Grimes on the outside. And, I mean, receivers are getting big, man. So it makes me a little nervous. It really does. I mean, what's our tallest cornerback, aside from Lippett, who's not playing? I think 6'2"?
Well, you know what? Brent Grimes keeps shattering that mold with his ability to jump 10 feet in the air, so it's not like height isn't necessary.
We all know that he's not human. He doesn't count. He's an exception. But, I mean, you got to get nervous about that, right? I mean, we have a bunch of slot corners, I feel like, at this time.
Well, I mean, this has been recurring, and I can tell you that's going to be that way as long as we have Coyle as our, coordinator. He likes to do a lot of zone, and he wants guys that are quick and cover space in zone, and so he typically gets small corners. I'm not as concerned. I mean, I understand the rotation, and I think what happens right now is they're wanting to make sure they can move one into the slot or the boundary if one of them gets hurt. And so I think in particular they're trying to figure out who's our other boundary corner. That's an extremely difficult position to play. It's extremely difficult to put a rookie in. I mean, even though Lippett's exciting, Bobby McCain is exciting, there's no way I want those guys lining up on the boundary in the NFL starting in week 1. I want them to get plenty of time to learn. Mm-hmm. And so I think they're cross-training Bryce McCain to be able to go play on the boundary if Taylor gets hurt. And so that's why they're doing that. But I think, and you're going to be interested when they play the Cowboys, is when we ask him to play somebody like Des Bryant, we don't have guys that are going to match up very well with Des Bryant when they just basically do the old chuck it up in the air, let him go get it because he's so big. But I think they do have the personnel. I think you can take Walt Aikens. I really think he's able to cover from a cornerback position, man-to-man, on a large wide receiver like a Des Bryant. And so I think they do have some personnel they can do it with, but it's basically comes down to their philosophy of they want small corners that can play a lot more zone. And I'm not too opposed to it because of the rule change. I mean, my preference, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, is I want the bigger corner that can really press guys and throw off the timing of the quarterbacks and let my defensive line try to get in there, as well as I like the bigger corners to be able to come up and tackle, on the perimeter. But with the NFL, they're pushing the corners so hard to keep, those hands off those wide receivers until they're down the field. And so it starts to make more sense that you want a really quick cornerback versus a big physical cornerback. And I understand the philosophy, but, it's really going to be interesting to see it because the Dolphins do run into trouble when they play like the Patriots. Who do you have on Gronk that can keep up with him on a coverage standpoint, but is also big enough? And anytime we're playing these big perimeter wide receivers that have become so popular in the NFL, like the AJ Greens and Calvin Johnsons and stuff, will our small guys be able to hold up? I mean, Brett Grimes has, but he's an athletic freak. Some of the stuff Brett Grimes does is unbelievable, and most guys his size and height cannot do what he does in terms of elevating and stuff like that. So I'm kind of 50-50 on it, on whether or not we should have went and got a big corner or not. But I'm like I said, I'm really hopeful that Walt Aikens is going to be able to fill that role in a matchup scenario when we have to have it.
Okay, so we're gonna switch gears again because really that's the only battle that's really going on in the secondary. It is Jamar Taylor and Bryce McCain. Everything else is pretty much experimentation. See if there's maybe a miracle that might happen, and truthfully there isn't. Bobby McCain is getting a few snaps here and there. He's doing okay-ish on those chances. Tony Lippett got second-team snaps. Not great. He got burned a lot in day 4, actually. So all of those guys are still projects. There's nothing really going on there. So I'm going to go to something that's actually one of my favorite topics, and we're going to talk about the running back position. And I'm actually working on a piece right now. The backup running back position is actually a bigger battle than I expected it to be. And it's also a battle that's going on between people I did not expect. People were raving about the rookie Jay Ajayi. He's going to be awesome. He's going to be incredible. He's going to quickly take the backup role. Heck, he might even challenge Miller for the starting job, I was told. He was the real deal and all that. So far, the only person that is less impressive than Ajayi is Mike Gillislee. That's pretty sad, because Gillislee will not make the roster. I don't even think Gillislee makes the practice squad this year. He's gone. So the fact that Ajayi is doing so badly is actually, I thought he would be okay, but I didn't expect him to be this just blah. What really shocks me is that LaMichael James, out of nowhere, has suddenly become a real candidate to take the backup running back job. And I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that at all.
Did I hear he's returning kicks?
He is returning kicks. In fact, at one point he got to return a kick before Jarvis. So that would indicate to me that LaMichael James is currently the favorite to be the kick returner, punt returner person.
Did you happen to catch how he looked doing that?
A lot better than Landry. At the very least, he has better hands. Landry still has issues fielding those punts. James did not.
Fumbles, yeah.
James just grabs it and goes. Jarvis tends to still bobble it and then go.
There was a lot of hype on LaMichael James, and people really liked him, and they liked him for a reason. I wouldn't be surprised, if he finally gets over the injury bug and he can put a little something together. I'm not going to expect him to be, a big part of the offense, but I could really see him kind of carve out a role for himself in the NFL. And maybe he won't be with us next year, but maybe he can just be, a reliever back or just a return specialist or something. But there's too much talent there for nothing to come out of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is that
Mm-hmm.
this battle is suddenly a lot tighter than I expected it to. I mean, I was raving all off season about Damian Williams. Chad, you and I love him. We think he's awesome, and I mean, and he's doing pretty well this training camp too. But the competition is a lot tighter than I expected it to be. I mean, for every play that Damian Williams makes, LaMichael James finds a way to make one of his own.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I don't want to like pat myself on the back here because I did the film analysis on Ajayi, but I mean you know full well, Lewis, I've been saying ever since I watched his tape that he's going to take time to adjust to the pro game. His highlight films in college, everything I was watching was just him having superior talent level to his competition. He was just outrunning people to the outside, and when I looked at is he slamming in on where he's supposed to be going on his blocks and how he's finishing his runs and stuff, I'm like, he looks like he's going to need a lot of coaching to get prepared for the NFL. I'm definitely not down on Jay Ajayi. He's a rookie that needs developmental time, and I think a lot of people, because of all the amazing things he did against a lot of honestly inferior competition in college, thought he was just this amazing stud. But the reality is he's just a talented rookie that needs some work. So I'm not shocked at all. I think LaMichael James is going to have an inside track because he's able to return kicks. I mean, he's all but sealed Gillisley's fate. When you have a guy that can return kicks, he's that much more valuable. And on that topic, I'm a huge advocate for that. Even though I know he's done some exciting stuff in the return game, I think it's completely foolish to have Jarvis Landry returning punts or kicks right now. I think he's just too valuable as a slot receiver now to put him in there to risk getting him hurt doing kick return. And so get him out of there and get a different guy in there to do your special teams returning. And Michael James, I think, does have the inside track, at least on the kick return side of it, to take that over. It'll be interesting to see how the battle plays out. I'm guessing you're going to kind of see Lamar Miller in a similar role to last year, maybe even a little bit heavier, probably getting around maybe 60, 70% of the carries in at the running back position. And I think you'll probably see a mix of James, Ajayi, and Williams. There's going to be weeks where one of them doesn't even dress, and there'll be other weeks where they do, probably depending on the competition and the matchups. But Michael James, he's had some injuries, but as you guys said, coming out of college, he was a very highly touted player, just as highly touted as Jay Ajayi or Damian Williams wasn't even drafted was. So he's in a talent level, he's right there with them. The big question mark in my mind is, where are they going for the future right now? And so it seems like Lamar Miller is by clear, far and away their best option right now at the running back position. And who else is going to be able to do it? With Lamar Miller isn't able to come back next year for contract reasons, or if Lamar Miller gets hurt, what kind of a drop off are we looking at right now on the team?
Yeah. There's only going to be 53 guys that make this roster, and I think LaMichael James, even if he is doing good, he's going to be the fourth running back just because we drafted Ajayi. Damian Williams is too valuable on third down, and Lamar Miller's the guy. So if he makes this team, LaMichael James is going to have to run the ball. But I wanted to ask you guys, am I crazy to think that we're preserving Jay Ajayi? Because running back, I feel like, of all the positions, is one where you do what you do. You got to learn the scheme, you got to learn all that stuff, but they got to take care of this kid. They invested quite a bit. I mean, fifth-round pick, they invested in him. They expect him to play more than 2 years. And with those knees, they say, I don't know what it is. They said he had like 4 years in him of NFL football.
It's hard to say those are numbers, or I think they kind of plumb out of what. Who knows how long his career will be. But I think you're absolutely right that they are preserving him. It's very similar to what they did with Lamar Miller. They brought him in and they almost gave him a redshirt year. Back when we had Bush and those guys, and Miller had I don't know if you remember, but he had a bad shoulder when he came out of college. That's when he fell, and rather than put him in there as a rookie and let him just get pummeled, they let him back. And I can tell you, if you watch film on Lamar Miller's rookie year, to where he was by the end of last season is drastically different. He's learned so much about setting up his blocks, and if they are doing a misdirection, getting it up to the line close enough to suck in the linebackers and then use his speed to bounce outside. And he's become a lot more complete running back. And Jay Ajayi is no different. I mean, I watched him in college. He abandoned his blocking schemes a lot. He just changed directions, and he's just running on pure instinct. And you can't do that in the NFL level. The linebackers are too fast. The defensive ends are too fast. And 9 times out of 10, you got to look at what the blocking scheme is, and especially this year, with their guards and stuff, you're going to have to slam in there and take a beating and get maybe a 2-yard gain. But you can't do that. You can't change fields and lose 2 yards, because it's crushing to come up and be at 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 13 because your running back decided to give up on the blocking scheme and try to reverse directions and make something spectacular happen. You got to come up to that line at 2nd and 8. And I just don't see Ajayi right now to be ready just to go in there and take the physical punishment. And I don't see that he's going to be any more superior to our current running backs, in doing that role until he learns the position. It's just going to take him time. He's a young kid, and if the medical reports on his knees are accurate, and he's going to have a shorter career than other running backs might, it makes no sense to when he isn't quite ready yet to be putting a physical beating on him. Like, why do you want him in there doing goal line carries and things like that when he's not any more better than another player on the team? So it's going to be kind of a redshirt year for him. I 100% think that's going to happen. They'll get him in there, and I think I mentioned when I did my film review, he's a very fast cutback runner, and so if I had him active, I had a dogfight that got into the middle of the fourth quarter and teams are tired, that's exactly when I'd put him into the game, because he's going to be able to burn some linebackers with his quickness. But until that point, that's all I would use him for, is just a guy that's going to get maybe 3 or 4 carries in a game as a change of pace type of guy.
And that's why I get annoyed by people who tried to crown this kid so prematurely. It's like, I'm getting tweets that I'm downplaying Jay Ajayi's awesomeness. He was incredible at Boise. He did all these things. He's going to be the starter after Lamar Miller ran for 1,000 yards. It's like, are you people out of your mind?
Yeah, the Boise
really
fans.
Like,
They
you
love
must
him.
you must be fans of the college, because your guy Ajayi has been terrible. It's like, and even after 3 days of him being terrible, I was sitting down watching them do the scrimmages, and this dude was standing in the front row, like blocking my view. So I'm annoyed, but whatever. So, and he's talking about how awesome Ajayi is going to be, and he's eventually going to take over the backup job. Meanwhile, the 2 dudes that I'm sitting with, we're talking about how good Damian Williams and LaMichael James have been, and somehow he comes up with Jay Ajayi. It's like, have you not been paying attention? Ajayi has done nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, he finally made one play, and this was just day 4. He made one good play that actually got him in there. So and now look at it this way, and I want you guys to clarify this for me. What do you mean by they're preserving Ajayi? Can you clarify that for me? What do you mean by preserving? Because that may have an effect on my rebuttal.
I would say there's no sense on putting him in right now to, as a running back, you basically just get beat down. I mean, you're getting hit by linebackers and you're exposing your knees and stuff. And Ajayi is at a point in his career. I mean, I want to see him that he understands the blocking schemes really well. He understands how to set up screens really well. He understands how to pass block really well. He fundamentally gets his game ready. Rather than using him on a limited role, slamming him in there as the second running back, whose job's literally just to kind of grind in there on short yardage plays or plays that his talent level isn't going to be utilized. I don't see a need to subject him to that his rookie year versus using a LaMichael James or Damian Williams. You might as well let those players who are probably more complete, even though their ceilings may not be as high as Ajayi's, I don't see a reason to be putting him in there right now as a rookie. And I think the idea being, if his knees are as worn down in the cartilage standpoint as what's being reported, you'd much rather have those knees get another year out of them when he's a much more complete player than as a rookie right now, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So you're basically saying that it's for the health reasons that they're not giving him more snaps with the higher ups. Okay, I understand that. But I mean, let's put it this way. Even if he was, he would not be succeeding because even where he's at now, it doesn't look good. He's with the twos and the threes, and he's still pretty much falling flat on his face. So I guess you could attribute that to the terrible offensive line that he's working with when he's with the twos and the threes, and the fact that the defensive line depth is so deep as compared to the offensive line. So maybe that's why he keeps getting stuffed. But I mean, it doesn't really matter which team he's with. He's falling apart. He's not doing anything well except for that one play that he made near the end of day 4. So,
well, you just got to keep in mind he's a rookie, Lewis, and so it's going to take some time. I mean, what I predict is you'll see him get in there in some of the preseason games, and he'll pull off some highlight runs. I mean, he's got the talent. I have no doubt there. But what you can't have, and I mean whether it's a rookie or a veteran, and Joe Philbin is huge on this. You can't have running back make mistakes and lose yards, and that until Jay Ajayi can prove on a consistent basis he knows what he's doing in there, I just don't think you'll see him get much playing time, and it doesn't make sense to push him into more playing time health-wise. But even my best analogy would be Reggie Bush. I mean, Reggie Bush would pull off some of these runs that would be, highlights, but I don't know how many times that guy would lose 2 or 3 yards because he was choosing not to slam in there and get that hard yard or two and take the punishment. He was much more interested in trying to take that 1 in 5 chance of being able to break it around the outside for another 8 or 9 yards. But it's a drive killer. It's almost like a penalty. It's almost worse than a penalty because you lose the down. You can't end up abandoning what the schema is supposed to do and lose 2 or 3 yards. And everything I've seen on film with Ajayi, that is exactly what instinctually he's going to be doing as a rookie. So I think, like I said, it's just he's kind of a redshirt guy. I think they got him knowing that, and that makes all the sense in the world to work him in practices, not give him a huge contact workload where he's just getting humbled in practice all game long, and just make sure you coach him up. And then when he's there, then that's when you kind of want to unleash him. I think I feel real strongly it'll be a second or third year before you really see what his potential is.
Maybe I'm crazy, guys, but I think that if Ajayi, and they drafted him knowing that he has a low shelf life, and whether it's true or not, it is medical jargon, and a doctor said this, but right now they have 3 running backs that are capable and that have, potential to move the chains. And with Bill Lazor on offense and looking at what Chip Kelly is doing right now, he has DeMarco Murray, Ryan Matthews, and Darren Sproles, and I feel like all 3 of them are going to get touches. And guess what? We have 3 running backs, and all 3 of them I think are going to get touches. And I think that, especially for Jay Ajayi, to preserve those legs by rotating with 3, and this day and age where running backs kind of seem like they're coming out of nowhere and then fizzling out 2 years later, what better time to have, a 3-headed monster? I'm okay if the Dolphins want to bust out their Felix Jones, Marion Barber, and Tashard Choice. You know what I mean? If we can get that going, and that's what Chip. That all 3 of those guys over there in Philadelphia, they're going to be getting touches. They got 3 running backs, and I feel like we have our baby version of it right now. And I think that they are preserving Ajayi. They're not going to let him go all out.
I agree, and I think just you got to keep an appreciation for how difficult Miami's offense is for a young running back, because they do so much of the read option, and that play is designed for Ryan Tannehill to literally read the linebackers in defensive ends and stuff and where they're going, and if the defensive end is crashing down, he's literally pulling that ball back away from the running back and taking off with it. And so that's not something you just go in there and start doing, because you're going to get fumbles, and it takes a real chemistry with the running back and the quarterback. And so, you just got to take developmental time. So, I mean, if I were to predict, I mean, I really think you're going to see Lamar Miller, obviously. But I think Damian Williams will be the guy getting the majority of the carry secondary. And Whether or not LaMichael James, is able to work his way in there or not, it will remain to be seen. But either way, I think he'll be having that role on special teams, so he'll probably be dressing for games. So he'll probably be the next man in.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but let me tell you something about Ajayi's knees. At this point, I don't know. Well, I don't even know if I'm going to trust these doctors anymore because, I mean, look, man, Louis Delmas made a miraculous recovery, okay? Like, he was supposed to be gone for 9 months, and he came back in 5, and he looks perfectly fine. And I know someone who wound up hurting themselves while playing tennis, and the doctors they went to a sports doctor, and they told them that they will never walk again unless you got surgery. She did not get the surgery, and she's walking around just fine.
Yeah.
So doctors are not miracle workers. They're not psychics. They don't know they don't always know these things. Sometimes the players know their bodies better than the doctors. So maybe Ajayi does have a low shelf life. Maybe these people are wrong, and truthfully, that he's not as bad as they think. Isn't Delma supposed to have a degenerative knee problem? He doesn't look like he's having that issue now.
No.
It's like, so how far can he go before it becomes a problem? Until he's 34. By then, you're out of the league anyway.
Did Delmas play 16 games last year?
He played 15.
15. Okay.
Right before the last game, he got hurt. I felt so sorry for Delmas. Delmas is my guy. I love Delmas, and it's like he was so close. Like some freak accident happened right at the last second to ruin his shot at it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he came back anyway.
That was a great addition, I think.
He will be a great addition. I hope they keep. I know that Akins is developing and all that stuff, but I really hope Delmas sticks around. I love this guy. He's an amazing person.
Yeah, he's fun to watch too.
And he's fun to watch dance. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the setup you completely want, in my opinion. You want Walt Akins working with Louis Delmas and Rashad Jones and stuff, so that you feel high on the kid and he's got a lot of talent. But I feel great not really having to rely on putting Walt Akins in there to start the season, or maybe it's a year or two from now where he becomes an every down starter. But to me that's the best way to develop your team, is to have veterans like that in there mixed with the young guys. And so I never like having to start rookies in there that are going to expose liabilities in the secondary. So my favorite scenario would be Delmas sticks around for a couple more years, and then he's maybe ready for retirement or something like that, but we'll then have another safety really ready to come up and play because of Delmas.
So y'all better thank your lucky stars that I was right about Louis Delmas coming back healthy.
Well, I disagree that I agree he's moving around and he's being himself, but I still don't think he's 100% yet. He's an amazing athlete, so he's able to play. It
looks fine to me.
And not 100%, but I think both Louis Delmas and Will Davis, I don't think either one of those guys are 100% yet, but they're...
Well, Davis, no. Delmas, I think he is.
I think Delmas will be just fine for the regular season, but it's unbelievable how quickly you think of Brandon Alberts still, and granted his knee injury was more severe, but he's still working his way back, and here Delmas is running around dancing already, and his knee injury was several games after Alberts. So it just individually, I suppose it depends how bad the tear is, how successful the surgeries are, and you never really know. But I'm delighted that he's back, because I honestly didn't expect him back until like a month into the season for him to be back and ready to play. So it's a huge benefit to the team.
Yep, I am totally with you there. Okay, so we're gonna get ready to wrap this up. We've been going at it for an hour and a half, and I need to get some sleep for tomorrow because I'm going to be back at camp again. So, any last thoughts, guys?
I'm just excited to see Ndamukong Suh taking Jordan Phillips under his wing. I read something about that today. And, at first I was looking at that draft pick like, D-line in the second round. I like it if Ndamukong Suh takes him under his wing. And that's what's happening. So that's great. And Jordan Phillips gets to learn from the best. And I'm really excited about that, his development. And I think in the second half of the year, maybe, we're going to start seeing a lot of Jordan Phillips, and it's going to be a great thing.
Absolutely. I'm loving that at his size speed combination that he's going to be getting a lot of one-on-one matchups. People are going to try to be blocking him with a guard or center because they have to double team Sue, and so he's got a beautiful opportunity. I hope he is just like. I made the comment that he should be following Sue around like a puppy all year. He should, do his workouts, do whatever he does, because if he does come out motivated and he gets himself in proper shape and is aggressive in there, he's going to have a really good opportunity to really put up some good stats, because that's a defensive tackle's dream, is to always get to play next to Sue, because you're going to get so many single matchups.
All right. So that'll be it for this edition of PhinManiacs Live. Well, tomorrow we're going to be back at training camp, and I'll be live tweeting everything as that happens. And hopefully we'll get to see. Hopefully I'll get to see Albert out there in pads again, maybe doing some light work. Maybe I'll get to see some more Billy Turner, some more Jamil Douglas. I'm going to try and see what happens with Jamar Taylor. And yes, Professor Lou, I'm going to be keeping an eye out for Tim Simish and Darren Altman. They've actually been doing. Professor Lou's there in the chat talking about his guys Altman, Simish, and Liedtke. That Liedtke. I don't even know how to say that.
I hope he does well, so you have to keep saying his name.
So you want to try?
No, I think you did better than I would have done.
Efren?
Liedtke? Is it German? Sounds kind of German.
They need a German on the team. I'm going to close out the show like Arnold. Okay, everybody. That is the end of PhinManiacs Live. Join us next time.
That's pretty solid impersonation.
That's really good.
I'm not so bad, right? All right. So thank you guys for listening, and good night. For myself and Chad Roundabaum and Efren Ramos, I say good night and see you guys tomorrow.
Take care.
Yep.